from the production studios of Epic Financial Strategies here in Red Bank, New Jersey. We are Infinity X, giving a stage and microphone to human excellence in the constant pursuit of creating opportunities, ecosystem mergers, investment strategies, investment opportunities, and opportunity to model after entrepreneurs who have been there, done that, and are building things that you want to pay attention to. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Harder, co-founder of Infinity X. Welcome to our Tuesday, September 20th session of Infinity X. Again, stage and microphone, human excellence replay. We are infinityx.com. We are Infinity X YouTube. We are Infinity X app and on Spotify and all of the different podcasts that are out there. And ladies and gentlemen, I have had the good fortune of getting to know this evening's guest, Eric Pearce, over the last couple of months. It started with a conversation when I was in Florida, and what I was completely caught off guard with is the fact that there is a massive amount of cash flow opportunity that exists in the world of boating. I had no idea. So this evening, you're going to get a real deep journey, and you're going to get a tremendous amount of knowledge from somebody who is operating at a super high level, not only entrepreneurially with him and his wife, but in a specific area that you probably didn't see coming, but is definitely an opportunity that you don't want to not pay attention to what Eric is up to. Eric, what's up this evening, brother? How are you?
Doing good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. What's going on? You camera on there? Can I see you? Where you at?
Well, I'm trying to get it working here, and it's I'm getting a message telling me the host has disabled the video.
Oh, okay. So can you enable? Shout out to my audio-visual team, Danny Drew, Parker Russo. Guys, make it happen on a weekend and week out basis here on Infinity X. Well, anyway, while we're trying to get your video enabled there, brother, what's going on, man? How you doing this evening?
Doing good, man. There we go. You can see the bed in the background. I'm actually over at my parents right now. We're having a little family dinner, a little family get together, and I'm a realist. I'm a real dude, so I'm never afraid to show the real backgrounds.
Hell yeah, man! Let's
go ahead.
Now I was gonna say you got to keep it 100, man. You absolutely look. If there's anything fake, people are gonna sniff it out, right?
Exactly. Well, if you watch my social media and so on, I like to post, I post pretty much daily, and I like to show kind of the inside view of, a business owner and trying to run an operation and things of that sort. Not everything gets in there. I don't have a team. I don't have a, videographer chasing me or an editor. I'm all of them. I'm the editor. I'm the guy that's posting. I'm doing all that stuff. So it's one of those things where I just like to be real, so people know I'm a real person, and I go through the same things everybody else does. And even now I'm going through stuff now with the business, and it's one of those things where you learn faster. I think I like to get problems, issues. I like to get them done early, so I don't have to 10 years down the road. If you can solve those problems early, when you get down the road, they're not as big.
Well, I think that's a testament to, when you're identifying goals, you have to identify goals based upon optimal outcome, and then live your world based upon those positive outcomes. Like, understand, okay, when this goal is, or when this outcome is favorable, the way that I foresee it taking place, I'm then going to do next. And so then you're going to operate in the mindset of abundance, right? Then you're going to operate in the mindset of, okay, I need to understand that when my optimal outcome happens, I'm going to have to do steps X, Y, and Z beyond that to continue to innovate and scale, right?
Yep. That's exactly it. I mean, it's also one of those things where being an entrepreneur, not all plans go according to plan.
Yeah.
You got to be able to improvise. You got to be able to adapt. You've got to be able to be creative.
Yep.
But I think pressure situations force creativity. And that's when you find things that you may not have found before. Because when there's no pressure, everything stays the same. It's comfortable.
Sure. Life's not clear. you know?
Exactly. It's like you've got, if you really want to grow, if you really want to scale, get uncomfortable.
Oh yeah.
And it's never one of those things where it's like, hey, let's go get uncomfortable. Usually it's something that happens and you get uncomfortable, and then you have to dig deep, figure out what to do with it. Well, and there's always a solution.
Yeah, and let's dig deep with you, Eric, right? Because I always share with the good folks out there that have joined us on a week in and week out basis, looking for content, looking for golden nuggets from people who are operating at a real high level in areas that they've never had exposure to before. That you don't know where you're at until you know where you're from, right? And everybody has a journey that has included trials, tribulations, positives, negatives. So. Yep. Let's dive deep into your journey here, brother. Where are you from originally? Like, where'd you grow up?
Kalamazoo, Michigan. So I was born and raised. Moved when I was about a week before my 10th birthday to Florida. Okay. And I've been here ever since. It's going on 30 years now.
Big change.
And big change. My joke has always been, we drove till we hit water and we backed up and lived there. Backed up 1/4 mile and lived there. The funny thing is I haven't lived outside a 2-mile radius ever. I've moved a total of 1, 2, 3 times in 30 years.
That's right.
Yep.
Really?
Pretty wild.
Well, you're pretty in love with the spot that you're in. And like,
yeah.
And so your schooling, did you go to high school? Did you go to college down in the Florida area? Like, what did that look like?
My easy answer to that is I was homeschooled. So I did, I was basically self-schooled. I mean, obviously you're not when you're a kid, kindergarten and all that, you're not self-schooled, but you kind of are in a sense. Right. Went through all the way through high school. Same thing. Never went to college. I basically we had a family business and I started working, in the family business when I was 16.
Oh, that's cool.
Always been a negotiator, always been creative, always been seeing things, other people didn't necessarily, or see something somebody else is doing, but see another way to do it.
What was the family business, Eric? Like, what were you
negotiating? It was a commodity brokerage firm. Oh. So I did, it was basically like what they call an order clerk back in the days. So, it's in the futures market. So some people say, well, stock market, well, yeah, it's just a different market. It's the futures market. It's not the stock market, right? So basically you still have, the orders to place when a client calls in, things of that sort. So I did that. I helped, raise money, or rather bring leads in that were potentially going to be clients. So I did a lot of it was on sales online, internet marketing, before there was internet marketing.
Interesting.
So I had to be real creative back then.
Yeah. When was this?
This was 2001, I believe was my first year.
Yeah. This was still when the New York Mercantile Exchange was really, was a thing, and there was the open outcry and all of that stuff.
That's it.
What were you trading? What were you trading back then?
We traded, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 markets. Somewhere in there, like it was a lot. Grains markets, metals, agriculture, S&P, indices, currencies, all kinds of stuff. I remember looking at my computer screen back when computers were almost like a CTX monitor, about 4 feet deep. They weighed about 490 pounds. Right. And you were the man if you had like 6 of them on your desk. Yeah, your desk was about to break, but you're the man. You had all the monitors.
That's what putting work. That's for sure.
It was hilarious. I look at my monitor and I'd see all the markets. Most of the time I had no idea what I was looking at because that wasn't my thing. That's what my brother did. Because my brother and I worked together. It was a family business.
Got it.
It was Dad's business. Dad started the business back in 85. And check this out. He started out of the basement of his condo.
Oh, I'm not surprised to hear that at all.
I was 2 or 3 years old.
Yep.
So I grew up around entrepreneurship, business negotiations. Dad was always doing deals, things like that. So it's in my DNA, really.
Yeah.
And
And, you know, and when something's embedded into your DNA, you can either just like ignore it or you can really, really cultivate and harness it. And it sounds like you had the opportunity to do that right away. Now, what was it about capital raise, right? Client engagement, raising money, what that excited you, and why did you gravitate towards that versus the actual trading?
well, I'll answer the second question first. Trading was never my thing. I never liked looking at charts. I didn't like reading signals. I didn't like that stuff. That was what my brother loved doing. Me, I'd rather be talking to the people. I loved talking to the people, talking about money, talking about deals, learning who they were, what they were doing, how they got where they got. Because, the kind of people we're working with were big money people, and we had funds, other funds that were doing stuff with us. One guy was, I remember in particular, he was a fund manager, retired from it, but he was worth 5 billion.
Ooh.
And Ferrari collection, houses all over the country. And I don't mean houses, I mean compounds.
Yeah, sure.
We're talking like Batman underground parking garage for his car collection, that kind of stuff. You get on the phone with this dude, and just listening to his voice was intimidating. Real deep monotone voice. Like he'd drop an F-bomb, it would just get you to your core.
Yeah, I know.
It's like it would just shake you.
Bomb,
Yeah, exactly. Like he used it with authority, and you're like, if you're going to use that word, that's how you use it right there. You scare people with it.
Definition of it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I liked the client engagement side of it. I liked talking to the clients, learning things about them, hearing what they're doing, shooting the breeze, talking stories. And I liked the relationship. That was one of the principles my raised us on and raised me on, and just ingrained that business is relationships. That's what it comes down to. Sure. You got relationships, you got a network, you're going to be fine. The other principle was do the right thing and the money will always be there. And that's the core of business.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. Folks, we are Infinity X, Stage and Microphone with Human Excellence. This is Eric Pearce. We are learning and hearing the journey of the entrepreneur. Started at a commodity brokerage firm, family owned, founded in the basement of his father's hospital, of his father's condo back when he was in 1985. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't understand what that world is like, right, in terms of trading, there are very few things that touch on the core of the of human emotions, like making financial transactions, particularly in things like the futures market. The volatility in the futures market can be off the charts, absolutely outrageous,
nuts.
And even the biggest traders,
it's insane.
The biggest traders, and I had a number of clients, Eric, years ago that were mercantile exchange trainers, and their best days were incredible, and their worst days or their challenging days were ugly, and the market can go against you quick, and next thing you know, you got a delivery of cattle coming to your front door, if you don't execute on on selling the contract, right?
Or the other thing that happens that's even worse than taking delivery is going into margin. When somebody over leverages and it's against advice of the firm, and they go in margin call, and they end up 50, 100 grand, couple $100,000, couple $1 million deep that they have to pay off, and there's no time frame paid off. It's just now.
Yeah.
The clearing firm called up and says, call in the margin call, and they got to pay up. I've seen worst case scenario. Again, this was a small family owned business. This wasn't like a multinational or nationwide business. Even though we had clients all over the world, we weren't that kind of size. It was still a small business. So the biggest, margin call I can remember hearing, because my brother was the one that had to make those calls, was something like $4.5 million.
Wow.
But the guy that was trading, this was just a side, hobby he had. And he called in, and I remember hearing the conversation. It was basically along the lines of, without naming names, all right, sir. Well, you've got we got to take care of this margin call. You got $4.5 million. And he goes, oh, all right, I'll have a wire to you by the end of the day. This just play money anyway. No worries. We'll get back into it. And then he came back with, I'll send you another five. I'll send you another five in a couple of days or something like that. So he pays off his $4.5 million margin call. And a couple of days later, there's another wire that came in for like $5.5 million or something like that. And I'm like, that's some serious dough to be playing around with right there. I mean, seriously.
And I'll tell you what, what's amazing, in the financial planning space that we operate in, Eric, as
yeah.
We're always working with clients to try to segment,
Yep.
segment assets, segment capital. Like what's the goal and outcome for every dollar,
Right.
I mean, if you're not appropriately positioned, I don't care if you're the wealthiest person in the world, if you're not appropriately positioned when markets work against you, when, pandemics work against you, whatever the case is, you're going to get yourself boxed in. That's why it's so unbelievable. Like if you're going to use that type of money to play with, you have to be really, really, really well positioned.
Oh yeah. Now see this guy, I mean, to go a little deeper into that, this guy was a real estate investor. He owned apartment complexes, hotels, like universities, student housing. He owned all kinds of real estate. He basically owned, I still got to be careful, but he owned a large part of cities within a large state in our country. Not the largest state, but one of the bigger states. And he owned a lot of property. And so it was literally play money for him. And I'd never seen anything like that before. That was my introduction to serious play money. And I was like, I want to do that one of these days.
Well, okay. So you were like, hey, listen, I want to do that. Now, when did you come to the conclusion that you did not want to stay with the family business? Like what happened next?
Well, first of all, we ended up selling the business after 28 years. So that was 10 years ago, but it was never my passion. I did it because, I felt like I had, owed my family something because they raised me, they took care of me, as a kid, all that stuff helped me find my feet and all that. And it was kind of my contribution back to the family. And so from that point, it was like, I was always into yachts, luxury real estate, private jets, exotic cars, high-end watches, things of that sort. That's always been my passion. And people oftentimes look down and like, well, that's too much money or something like that. I'm like, it's not about the money. It's about what do I like? And that's the stuff I liked. I've always been attracted to it. I was the kid at 7, 8, 9 years old, 12 years old. I had stacks, literally 4-foot stacks of Rob Report magazine, DuPont Registry. I had, Controller magazine, which was the big, private aviation, jets for sale stuff. Before we had the internet, we had magazines. And in those magazines, you had stuff for sale. And you'd call the number you'd see on the page. Yep. And that's, I would call the jet brokers and get information on the jets. Like I was going to buy one just so I could get the full information on it. So I'd receive like these packages in the mail and stuff like that. And I just, really enjoyed it, so that's how that started. So I was like, one of these days I got to find something in the passion in what I like and make money with it. Because if I'm going to enjoy it, it's not going to be work. And it, still really isn't work.
Right. So you exit out of the business, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine it sold for, a nice capital gain. And by the way, what you shared, I love what you shared about giving back to your family, because they provided the foundational pieces for you to be able to step into the space that you're in and honoring your folks and putting it to work. I really, really admire that, Eric. But so you exit the business. What happened next?
Well, there were some things that were a little bit beyond my control. Went through one of the dips, and I went through a series of trying to figure out what was going on. Because you got to think about something, and for the audience to hear this, when you work in a family business for long enough, you begin to see it as your identity. And so what ended up happening is I went through a bit of an identity crisis, because I'm like, okay, this is all I knew for half my life, more than half my life. I grew up with this practically, because I was so young when Dad started the business. That was all I knew. And, I was called the financial guy. And even though I didn't do finance, people called me that. And so I had this identity thing go on where I'm like, well, it's not really who I am. It's not really what I want to do long term. So what ended up happening is I just started trying stuff to figure out what I wanted to do next. What I didn't know at that time is that I could make a business out of boats, or make a business out of, private jets, or that I could make a business out of those things that I really liked. I just always saw them, before I had the understanding of it, I saw them as just something you go spend money on. Rich people have these because they can just go buy them. That was before I understood how taxes work and how all this stuff works. Sure. Then once you understand that, you're like, okay, now it makes sense. But
now I got to put the work in, right?
Right. Exactly. So, I worked at a local outlet mall. I worked at a place that sold luxury golf carts. I sold, or flipped luxury watches like, Rolex and Patek Philippe and like luxury watches like that, high end stuff. I did Amazon, sold products on Amazon. I did drop shipping. I did Shopify stores. I had an advertising agency for a little while. I did stuff with, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, golf cart dealers, all kinds of different stuff. And the thing was, it never really clicked. But what happened was, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was building a skill set that I would use later on without knowing I was going to use it. And I remember asking myself in particular with the agency. And then when I was on Amazon also, I remember asking myself one day, why am I doing this? This isn't what I want to do. I don't want to sit at a computer all day. That's not what I want to do. What am I doing? And I remember thinking to myself, just keep doing it and see what skill comes out of it. And so I stuck with it for a little bit until I felt it was time, because, at some point it wasn't paying the bills anymore. I'm like, okay, now it's time to move on. And, one thing led to another, and, some really cool stuff started opening up in the boat business. I had no idea. And when I started, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue what to do. I'd never heard the terms I heard before. It's one of those things where you say yes and figure it out. That's really what it came down to.
Folks, we are Infinity X. Replay, we are infinityx.com. We are InfinityX YouTube and on the app. And we're speaking with Eric Pearce here. And Eric, the name of your company is?
30A Boat Valet.
30A Boat Valet, folks. Pay attention. We're going to get deep into what 30A Boat Valet is doing. But so, Eric, at the time, so you're at a crossroads, right? You've done a number of things since exiting out of the family business. You know that you have a passion for boats. Did you own a boat at the point when you decided to start a business in that space?
No, I didn't. What I did was, actually, I take that back. I didn't do anything except I said yes to an opportunity. So what happened was a little background on how this got started. So I was working at this luxury golf cart dealer, right? When I say luxury golf cart dealer, some people will, in the audience will imagine, playing a golf course, driving a golf cart and buying those kind of golf carts, right? That kind of dealership, like Club Car, Yamaha, something like that.
Yep.
So this dealer, their average price of golf carts is about $12,000 to $15,000.
Holy man!
The most expensive golf cart I'd seen them sell was, I think it was $69,000 out the door.
Oh my
God! When I say
well,
luxury golf carts, I mean luxury golf carts. Like you could go buy a Mercedes for the same price.
I was about to say, it's like a Maybach, I mean, like, oh my God,
Yeah. I mean, on that scale, it absolutely is. And that was actually like the Maybach of golf carts with the type of car it was. Ironically, it was a billionaire from South Florida that bought it. He bought two of them, one for himself and one for his security team to move around in. And then he had them shipped down. Like it was just crazy. And he was on his yacht at the time. Right. So I was there and, again, it was another desk job because I was doing internet sales. That's what I was hired for, was internet sales, marketing, social media, things like that. Something I knew about, but there wasn't really a thing I liked or had a passion for. It was like, I do it because it's there and it's, it's a distribution network. And so I was there for close to 2 years. I think it was about a year and a half. And one day a coworker, he and I had, connected, build a relationship. I call it a broship. So we built a little broship, and he came to me one day and knocked on my door of my office and peeked his head in. And he says, "Hey, I'm headed out in 2 weeks." I'm like you're leaving, as in like you're leaving, like you're going on vacation, or like you're gone, you're going to work somewhere else. He goes, "I'm going to work somewhere else." And I said, "Okay, well, there's a few people." He's like, "There's a few people I want to say goodbye to, because I want to stay connected." So I started thinking about it. I'm like, I wonder what he's going to do. So I caught up with him a little bit later. I'm like, "So what are you going to do?" I'm curious, because at that point, I was literally sitting at my desk going, "There's got to be something else I can do. I don't want to sit at a computer for the rest of my life." And I'm sitting there, decided, okay, what I want to do, or the idea I have in my head of what I want to do, along with a few goals. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to keep it right here at my desk. So I wrote a few things down. Not super, super detailed, but detailed enough that it was like I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted, and I knew what I didn't want. Right. I think sometimes knowing what you don't want is as important, because you can narrow down what you want.
I agree.
Yeah.
Identification of things you don't want and the things that you're not good at.
Yes, exactly.
Outsource those. Absolutely.
Totally agree. So I did that, and it didn't take a whole lot of paper, just a little bit of paper. Basically it was on one sheet. I just wrote kind of 3 points down, just something to get what was in my mind, or what I was sensing, I guess, get it on paper so I can look at it and read it, and actually define it. That was the most important thing to me, is I needed to define it at that point, because I was at a point of feeling lost, not doing what I wanted to do, knowing I didn't want to be there for the rest of my life, and basically saying something's got to change, and it's got to change now. Not soon, not fast, now. It's got to happen. I'm not going to do this the rest of my life. My family deserves better. I deserve better. It's time to move. It's time to go. It's time to do something.
And pause right there, by the way, Eric. Ladies and gentlemen out there, if you have a question for Eric, put it in the chat, but ask yourself the question: when was the last time you felt that way? We all have felt that way. The question is, are you feeling that way now? If you are feeling that way, if you're feeling that way now, pay attention to what happens next. Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
No worries. So basically it was this process of, I was certainly unhappy with what I was making, because what I was making to me seemed pathetic. When I look at a monthly basis, let alone when I look at a yearly basis, and be like, there are people that make this in a day. And I basically had to get ticked off at myself enough that I was a little bit more behind the scenes. I would literally go to the bathroom at this place. I would stand at the mirror and look at myself in the mirror and say, "You've got to do better, and this has got to change now. There is no time. You have to change now. This has got to change." And I just keep telling myself that. And I'm like, what are you going to do? This is pathetic. And I remember taking my paycheck into the bathroom and looking at it and looking at myself and saying, "You're going to do something about this, because this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable to treat your family like this. This is unacceptable that you are actually accepting this. You have accepted this for the last year, and you have been okay with it. Stop being okay." get ticked off and do something about it. So I remember having this self conversation. I was literally talking out loud. This wasn't a quiet conversation. In fact, when I stepped out of the bathroom, one of the guys I was working at me walking by, he's like, "You're right, dude." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine."
Yeah.
I was on the phone.
We've all been there as well, folks. Every single person has been there. You are not alone in that. I've caught that look before myself.
Yeah. So
you're pissed off, but you're pissed off and you're feeling like, okay, mediocrity loves company and I don't want to be part of that company. Right. So what did you do?
So once I kind of got out of that, it was actually that step that led me to start writing my note down with the goals, defining. And so I literally went back to my desk and I sat down. I had this thing, and I still do this. I kind of have a tendency to stare into space, but it's because I'm very visual. I have photographic memory. I envision things. I see things where, I'll imagine what I want my future to look like. And I literally visualize it to the point of it feels like a dream. I go very deep. And this is something practice. You have to make yourself, really sit down and take the time and focus on it. It's a muscle. Being able to envision what you want your future to look like is a muscle, and you have to exercise. And if you don't have that,
I love that.
There's a proverb that says, "Without a vision, the people fail." And so I get to my desk. I just sit in the chair and I start thinking, and I start saying, okay, what do I want to do? What does it look like? What does the next step look like? And here's what I came up with. And I'll tell you exactly how the thoughts went. And I even wrote it down. I said, okay, I don't want to sit at a desk anymore. I don't want to stare at a computer anymore. I don't want to look out this window anymore. I don't want to be looking out a window. I want to be outside. That's what I want to be outside. I want to work with my hands a little bit, but I don't want to do construction. I don't really like construction. It's not my thing. So I don't want to do that. If there's a way I can work with things that I've dreamed of, that would be ideal. I wonder if there's something in boats that I could do, that I could get involved with. And let me stick a side note, stick a side note on it. 2018 or 19. I took my family on a little vacation, basically just a weekender. We went up to Lanier Islands in Georgia. And I remember being at the resort we were staying at. We had been saving up for this. Sometimes when I tell people this, they're like, well, how did you do that when you're in such a situation? I'm like, well, we had planned this. We had saved up for it over the course of about a year. Between my wife and I, we usually do like a kind of an epic vacation once a year where we'll take 2 or 3 weeks and just go hit like a few states, or we'll go to Europe and see our family and visit all kinds of places. And it's kind of like our, just go all out grand finale vacation. Right. So we save it up and just, make it happen. So we went to Lanier Islands, and I saw boats, because this was, these are islands surrounded by water, Lake Lanier. And I told my wife, I was like, let's rent a boat tomorrow. Let's go out on a pontoon boat or something like that. I've never done that before. I've always wanted to drive a boat. She goes, okay, cool, let's do it. So I ended up calling the next morning, called around to a couple places, found one super, super cheap. It was like $200, 2 hours. And I'm like, let's do it. And I remember my old coworker at the golf cart place. He was an avid boater and had been a boat owner and all that stuff. And I said, we were talking about pontoons. He's like, if you ever get the chance to, and you take a pontoon out, make sure it's a tri-toon. And I'm like, what's that? He goes, it's a pontoon boat, but it has 3 hulls on it. It's got 3 floats instead of 2 floats, like most pontoon boats. I said, okay, well, that sounds interesting. He goes, trust me, it makes a difference. They ride better, they look better, they feel better. The whole thing's a better deal. I'm like, okay. So we get there, and I remembered this. And I remember asking the company, hey, do you have any tri-tunes? They're like, yep, all of our boats are tri-tunes. I'm like, awesome. So we get there, I take their little, licensing thing. I get on the boat, we get out on the water, and I had the thought right there on the spot. I looked at my wife and I said, there's going to be an opportunity that I'm going to take, and I'm going to be able to work with boats, use them for free, make good money, and I'm going to be able to change my future and our future. And I'm going to turn something huge, and it's going to become something big and major. I said, I don't know what it is. I have no idea, no clue. I don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, anything like that. But that's what's going to happen. She goes, okay, cool. Let's do it. Make sure you say yes. I said, absolutely, I'll say yes. Check this out. Fast forward. I get my envision done of saying I want to work with my hands, but not construction. Something that has a little manual labor, enough that I can work up a sweat and feel good, feel good about the day. Something I can do well with, something I can build something out of. And that was a couple weeks before the door knock of my coworker buddy leaving. Mm-hmm. So I chased him down, like, so dude, what are you doing? Where are you going? He's like, well, I'm pulling boats. I'm like, what's pulling boats mean? He goes, well, I have some friends who have a rental company. And basically what happens is the customers rent the boats. But they keep them dry stored. Like they're stored on the trailer on the ground. What I do is I hook my truck up to the trailer. I tow the boat to the ramp, put the boat in the water, give them a little disrotation. And then when they come back, I load up the boat and, take it back. I was like, okay, I never heard of that. He goes, yeah, it's kind of a unique sort of thing, but it's cool. I have fun with it and I get to use the boats. I was like, well, that's cool. Like, do they have a spot for another person? It's like, well, I don't really think they do right now, but I'll keep you posted. And about, I don't know, a month goes by. 2 weeks after that, surprise door knock. I noticed my credentials stopped working in certain places on the computer, and I'm going, something's going on here. And then another one stopped working while I was in this like dashboard kind of thing, and I'm like, I'm about to be fired.
About to be fired. Son of a gun. Unbelievable.
Quick thought, about to be fired. And I'm like, okay, prepare for it. You're going to say, yes, this is an opportunity, and you're going to move forward. This is what you've been looking for.
Right.
This is the opportunity. This is your out. And I was like, okay. So owner comes knocking on the office door. He's like, hey, would you come in and see me before you leave? I'm like, sure. And it's 5:02. I'm going, well, I'm leaving now. So I go into his office. We have a sit down. He tells me he's letting me go. Kind of a little bit of a blow, but at the same time, I was kind of oddly, in a very weird way, excited.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was one of those things where he was cool about it too. He was like, you know what? We left on good terms is really what it came down to. He was like, I just, I don't think this is your passion, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, look, I'll be honest, it really isn't. I don't want to do this the rest of my life. I've been thinking about it. And I said, this is very timely. Like, I'm going to take this as an opportunity. And his face kind of lit up. He's like, that's good. That's good. He's like, you do that. And whatever you need, just give me a call. If you want advice, if you need help with anything. He's like, you got my number. Yeah,
but you got my number.
Right. Well, the funny thing is we actually did stay in contact, down the road. And so anyway, still didn't have anything to fall back on. Mm-hmm. So now I'm just out of job and I got to go do something. And I had worked at, the Outlet Mall before that. I'd been there 3 different times. I'm like, I'm not going back to the Outlet Mall. I'm not doing that anymore. Yep. Not happening. It's got to be something else. So anyway, 2 weeks go by. I called my buddy that day and I said, hey, it just happened. He's like, I had a feeling that's why you were calling. And then he gave me inside scoop that they're actually letting a whole bunch of people go because this was when COVID hit.
Okay.
And so it just made sense. So I said, hey, dude, keep me posted if there's a spot. He goes, I'll go beyond that. I'll start putting the bug in their ear.
Mm.
He's like, cause I know your family. I know you got to be able to, take care of them and stuff. So anyway, I think 3 days go by. It's a Thursday afternoon. Mm. I get a call. Here's Brooks. And I pick up the phone. He's like, I've got good news. And I said, I like when a phone call starts that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said 2 words, you're in. And I was like, are you kidding me? He's like, no, you're in. I was like, when do we start? He goes, Saturday. Be geared up. Be ready to go Saturday. I'm like, sweet. I said, I've never done this before. So he's like, don't worry, I got you. So that Saturday, went, met him, and I got started. And what I was doing was I was towing boats, connect to the trailer, launch them, which means take them off the trailer, put them in the water, put the customer on it, go back, load the boat back up. So it was the physical aspect I wanted, which was the work on the boats, the trailers, things of that sort. But it wasn't overwhelming.
Yep.
The crazy part was the day I started, my actual first official day where I did my first boat myself was exactly 1 year from when I took my family to Georgia and we were on that boat. And I said, the opportunity is going to come and I'm going to say yes. And here's what I'm going to be doing. Incredible. So the thing is working for this rental company, I had free access to the boats whenever I wanted. So I had use of the boats, made really good money. That was the first time I'd seen 10 grand a month in years. And to go from basically $24,000 a year internet sales, that's what I was talking about, was pathetic. So from 24,000 a year to basically 10,000 a month. And then, went through some things with that too. Had a jealous owner. They fired me. Owner was jealous of that I was making more than him. So other things too, won't go into the full explanation, but fired from that. Next thing became an operator.
Okay.
So I started captaining the boats. It was the next step, because when I started operating the boats or towing the boats, I was like, okay, at some point, I think I would like to do my own charter, my own rental service.
Yep, that makes sense.
But I need to, what's that?
I said that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, I need to learn the ins and outs. I need to learn the business. I need to learn what I'm doing. So I went from being, towing the boats, learning how to manipulate the boats, move around the docks and get comfortable with them, where I understood what I was doing. Did that. Then I became an operator, got used to the waterways around here, got used to what I was doing and all that stuff. And then that quit same way. So each time I had a change, each time it was time to move to the next step, the rug got pulled out from under me. Some kind of sudden change, like drastic change, like lose a position or this happens. And I would feel each time I felt like I was just left out to dry.
Or being presented an opportunity, Eric.
Exactly. So it's been really interesting for me. Once I feel a level of comfort, something big changes and I have to adapt. I'm forced to adapt.
Let's hold on a second, folks. Let's play in that space for a moment, because because comfort, quite honestly, is the enemy of expansion in many cases, right? And so the entrepreneur and the business or the business owner needs to be very, very careful when things become overly comfortable, right? Because at any point in time, a partnership can dissolve. At any point in time, a curveball, risk, right? This is all about risk management, ladies and gentlemen, right? A risk can be thrust into your world that you weren't prepared for. And that comfort evaporates in a heartbeat, right? And so the question is, are you going to allow it to, essentially drive you back to mediocrity, drive you back to internet sales? Are you going to allow that to drive you back to the 9 to 5? or are you going to, look at the ultimate vision? Which, by the way, I love the fact that you shared that vision is an exercise that you need to do with your brain each and every single day. I love that. I think that's a very powerful statement. Replay, we are infinityx.com. We are InfinityX YouTube. So Eric, you capped. So you first, we're moving the boats, right? Then you captained the boats. Now, what happened? What happened now?
So one guy found some other operators that were, I wasn't a licensed captain at the time, but for what that was, the type of operation was legally, you don't have to be a licensed captain for that type of operation. But what ended up happening is he met some other captains who were actually very highly qualified captains, and he wanted to build his business more, build what he was doing a little bit more. Ironically, I was actually I'd actually made the recommendation to him because the guy I operated for first, he had actually found my Facebook ad for towing boats.
Oh, wow.
And he had called me up because he's like, I have a boat that just sits there. We use it a couple times a year, but I don't like launching and picking it up. Is that something, can you do that? I'm like, sure. And we got talking a little bit more, got discussing things, and kind of getting to know each other a little bit over the phone. And I said, have you ever thought about, renting your boat out? And he's like, what do you mean? Like, have you ever thought about renting your boat out so you can make some money on it? And then he's like, well, I tried, there's an app called Boat Setter, and then there's one called Get My Boat. And I told him about this app called Get My Boat because I had been looking at that, because you got to remember, I've been looking at the market very closely for a good year and a half prior to meeting him. And I had been studying the space because that's where I was headed. I just didn't know exactly how I was going to get there. And I had a little bit of reservation in me because it was such a big play for me to just go buy a boat and do it. Sure. So I was being transparent here. I was a little bit scared of that. And so my way around the fear was to go operate other people's boats for them.
By the way, that's no different than velocity banking, Eric. That is zero different, right? OPM, right?
Yep.
If I can figure out a way to creatively leverage what is available to me to then go acquire other assets while still earning a rate of return on what I'm doing, higher velocity on your dollar, earn money in two different places at once. Totally get that.
Exactly. And that's, so essentially that's what happened. I used other people's money, but in this case, it was other people's assets.
Right.
Right. So what I did was, I was going to launch and pick up his boat for him, mentioned that you could do that. He had told me he had tried one of the other apps and had like a few, rentals on it, but he didn't really know what to do with it or whatever, and got off of it or something like that. And I told him about this other platform. And I said, you got to get on that, and I'll write stuff for you. Cause again, I have that background in internet sales. So there's something, I forget if it was the description or something I wrote for him. There was some kind of contribution I was making to help him get it going. And I remember him like texting me, I think it was the next night, or maybe it was that night. I forget now, but he was like, dude, I got a booking like 3 days from now. And it started, getting momentum. And he's like, hey, if, can you operate the boat for me? Can you be an operator? I'm like, sure. Again, say yes and figure it out. So that was the first one. And so I ran the boat.
How much were they booking for? Just out of curiosity.
Then it was like $500 or $600, $700, somewhere in that area. I want to say it was five or 600.
For how long?
Like 4 hours.
Wow. $500. Okay.
Somewhere in that area, which is around here. That's pretty average. Because these are like, our boats are luxury pontoons. They're higher end or higher value, things of that sort. When people get on them, they notice the difference. They notice the difference when they look at the boat. But anyway, going back to this. So I ran his boat for a little while, and then he, parted ways with me. So I ended up talking to a neighbor literally 2 doors down from me. And he had told me, just texted me out of the blue one day, he's like, I'm thinking about buying a boat. I said, you should buy a boat. You should rent it out and let me drive it. And he's like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, why just pay cash for a boat and just have it sit there? And he said, okay, what do you have in mind? I'm like, rent it out, make money on it, use it to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a little while later, when one door closed, another door opened. So I operated a little longer. And then I don't remember what happened on that one. Well, I was operating his boat, and that was when I was like, I can't remember what happened. There's a gap there, and I can't remember what it was. But anyway, it came down to it. I think things slowed down or something like that, or something happened. And I basically had, very little left in my bank account. And that's when I was like, I need to buy a boat and do it myself. It's time.
Yep. It's the time.
So
yep.
I had $400 left in my account, and I got my pre-approval letter from my credit union, which happened kind of all at the same time. And I called the bank up because it was an auto loan. And I called them up and I said, you do boat loans, right? I said, yeah. I said, well, how do I do that? I said, well, you have a pre-approval letter for a car, right? I'm like, yeah. So well, you can use that for a boat too. I said, okay, this sounds good. Because their pre-approval letter, the way they do it, it's no hard pull. The pre-approval letter is like, it's gold to me.
Really?
And it has been, because there's no hard pull on your credit. You can delay payments up to 90 days. And it's usually, the terms are based on your credit score. So my credit had been working its way up.
Right.
And I was like right under their maximum amount that they'll fund. So basically, I figured out what boat I wanted, went and posted in a Facebook group, which Facebook groups became my thing, kind of my specialty. It's how I built my business too, in the very beginning. So going to a Facebook group, I figured out exactly what I wanted. I posted it. 5 minutes later, this dude goes in the Facebook group, and he says something like this. I was like, yes, exactly like that. Like 10 minutes later, we're on the phone for 2.5 hours, getting to know each other. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get this boat. This is it. I'm not going to look anymore. That's the boat. So it took a month to get that worked out. But in the interim, what I did is I created my account on the platforms, get my boat in particular. And the reason I mentioned I'm actually talking about the platform is I actually help people build their business and provide tips and so on. I actually created a new Facebook group since we spoke last. It's called How to Start and Scale a Boat Charter Business. That's the Facebook group. It's got literally, it's like four people in the group right now, 4 members. It's that new. But what I'm doing is each day, as close to each day as I can, I go in and I post his tip. And then I'm going to start getting, diving deeper into the process of how to do it and what to do.
Okay.
Anyway, so
now have you gotten, so now you're at the point where, okay, you're buying the boat, right?
Yep.
And was that the actual launch of 38 Valet?
That was the actual launch of 38 Boat Valet. So what I did was took about a month to get that together. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to wait a month to get things going. If there's delays, whatever, we'll get through it. So I'm like, okay, next step, let's go create an account and start marketing. So I had the business. I didn't want to wait till I had the boat, and then the lag time it would take, because there's always unexpected, there's always variables. I didn't want to have variables happen after I got the boat. When a payment's coming, I needed profit being produced immediately. So basically what I did is I went and drummed up a booking, a charter, the first charter on the boat. And we're a week out and the deal wasn't done. And I had this charter booked. I had the date, I had the people, I had all that. I was ready to go. I had the deposit. And they were going to move it back. And I said, no, we'll be there to pick it up on the 3rd, August 3rd. And there was some back and forth and things like that. And I told my wife, I was like, we got to go get this boat. She goes, we can just drive up there. I was like, yeah, sure. Let's go. It's up in Mississippi. It's a 6-hour drive. So comes down to it a week later. And in my mind, I'm like, I have this charter going. Well, I mentioned it to my wife, but she didn't really realize it was real. So August 3rd, we drive up to Mississippi. We pick up the boat. Obviously, details had gotten worked out. We come back down. We get in at like 9 p.m. Tuesday night. And I'm cleaning the boat and everything. My wife's like, why don't we just go home and go to sleep? It's been a long day. I'm like, well, because I've got a charter tomorrow. The boat has to be ready. I got to leave at 5 a.m. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I have my first booking tomorrow morning. I have to leave at 5 a.m. She's like, are you serious? But yes, I am dead serious right now. That's why I've been pushing to get this thing on the ground and get going. She's like, well, shoot, get it cleaned up. You got a booking tomorrow. I'm like, I know, that's what I'm trying to say. So I got home at like 12 a.m. I got up at 4 a.m. So I get home at 12 a.m., which means I didn't actually get to sleep until like 12:31. I get back up at 4 a.m. I leave at 5. I go pick up the customer. You know what the funny thing was? The customer was the other, it was a large group, and this was the second part of the group. And it was referred from the guy who had originally let me go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So things came full circle at this point. Now we're doing business together, relationships.
Yep.
So anyway, had the first charter, and I ended up having being booked out the rest of that week. And then from there, just took off. And, then I EBA together, LLC. So one of my other things is I created an LLC two years before that for a different company that I thought I was going to start, never did. And I'm like, I'm just going to hang on to this in case I need to use the LLC for some reason, and I can just put a DBA on it or something like that.
Yeah. And so Eric,
well, that time came.
Yeah, well, that time came about, right? And so now let me ask you, right? Because the folks on here, I think are really, really interested in understanding, like, what do the margins look like? Like, tell me a little bit more about 30A Boat Valet. What research went into it? Like, what type of ROI can it actually produce to own a boat?
It actually depends on a number of things. It depends on the type of operation. If you're running what I call a wet operation or dry operation, I have a dry operation currently, and the margins are pretty good. Standard, there is an industry standard, because you got to keep in mind, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's nothing small. It's nothing that's just newly discovered. The thing that makes us different is that we have our operation is a spin-off, basically. So I use a law in Coast Guard regulations that either number of things either isn't used correctly, is misused, or is misunderstood. And so what I did was, as far as my operation goes, I did a deep dive into Coast Guard law, into this particular set of regulations, to understand it and its definitions before I really started operating fully into this in this area, which is what allows us. I've told you before, we can take up to 13 people plus captain. Well, that's a very significant regulation. That's something very significant, because most small charters or rental companies can only take 6 people.
Oh, wow.
And it's because there's 2 types of regulations. There's commercial and there's recreational. Mm-hmm. Most people know of commercial regulations, which is where insurance is super high. Cost of operation is super high, because you take the captains and staff, you employ them. And there's a number of other, things that goes on there that prevents, in my opinion, growth. So with recreational regulations in Coast Guard law, you can take more than double the people on the boat, the reason that's so significant is our market around here. And this is really its market particular.
Mm-hmm.
Our market is a lot of bachelorette parties, family get together. So you'll have two families get together and share the cost or something to that effect. Right. So there's this demand for large groups. So, where most companies only take 6 because of their licensing and regulations that they operate under, we can do more than that. So that's one of the big things that sets us apart. Well, industry standard as far as profit margin goes is 70%. 70% profit margin. So 30% expenses, 70% profit margin. Now, if you're going to look at ROI, it's going to depend on the type of boat you invest into. But, basically this is the way of turning. See, it used to be that boats were a liability.
Yeah.
That was before.
But everybody break out another 1,000, right? That's what people think. Yeah.
Exactly. My term for it is bring in another 1,000. It's like, I gotta change that. I gotta change that boat into something else. Bring over another 1,000. How about that? Right. Yeah, something like that. So that the type of boat, level of investment is what determines the ROI, because your percentages will stay the same, but your dollar amount increases is really what happens. So $1 million boat, let's say, or let's just say $100,000 boat, which would be a really nice pontoon. You're probably looking at.
Let's play in that space. Let's say that I, Dave Harder, said, you know what, I call you and I say, Eric, I'm thinking about buying a boat, but I'd like to rent it out. What's the value add that you provide to me, and then what type of ROI could I expect on that?
It goes back to the investment amount. If it's $100,000, let's just use that as a whole number. Basically, what we do, and for the audience listening, we have partners that we work with. And basically the way that works is it's not a partnership in the company. The partner buys the asset and basically forms a partnership with us, where we basically split the profit. And the way we do that is we take the gross out and we split the net profit. So after all expenses, that's marketing, your mortgage, you're on the boat, all these expenses that you go through in the boat, whatever's left, that net, that's what we're going to split. And typically you're going to see, again, 70% profit margin. So you split that 50-50, it's pretty healthy. A pontoon boat can make $30,000 in a month, $20,000 in a month.
What? What? Is that
yeah.
net positive net in my pocket?
Well, I'm saying revenue.
Oh, okay.
So revenue. So if you take, let's just split the difference and say $25,000. This is in season. So when I say in season, I mean, it's hot season when we've got all those. Remember I told you we get 27 million visitors a year in the area.
Yeah.
So when all those people are here and they're renting boats, yeah, that's when you can expect that. Not in winter time. Wintertime is still too slow, but 5 months out of the year is our hottest season. That's when you can see, $25,000-$30,000 a month in revenue. You take marketing out of that. Marketing, you're looking at, let me think, about probably $3,000 to $5,000 in marketing, but that $3,000 to $5,000 a month in marketing produces not only for that month, but usually produces for about 3 months in total.
Okay.
So your ROI on that spend is anywhere from 20 to 50 grand.
So
it's pretty crazy.
That's insane. So wait, ladies and gentlemen, we are Infinity X Stage and Microphone Human Excellence. This is Eric Pearce. Company is 30A Boat Valet, and you can check them out on social media. Where do they find you on social media, by the way, Eric?
2 profiles. 30A Boat Valet, which is Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, like all over. And then my brand is Eric Pearce, which is Eric J. Pearce on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. And it's all me doing all the content, nobody else.
Love it.
So
Replay,
Yeah.
we are infinityx.com. We are InfinityX YouTube and on the app. And so, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm mortgaging. I'm essentially financing $100,000 boat, right? But
Yep.
but 30A Valet is going to do what for me, because I don't know the first thing about boats.
Okay. So basically what you're looking at, when you're financing a boat, on average, you're looking at 20% down, just to go through a little bit of detailed numbers there.
Mm-hmm.
Average is 20% down. There are companies that do 10% down. So essentially 20K on average controls a 100K asset.
Okay.
And you're going to have an entry cost. So you've got your down payment. All in all, you're going to be looking at putting up to, I would say, up to 40 grand into the asset to get it off the ground.
Okay.
From that point, what you're looking at is probably looking around a 5 on a pontoon boat. Split this way, you're looking around probably 5 grand a month, somewhere in that area. And I'm just throwing out an off the top of my head, fairly educated guess. So
Okay.
at 5 grand a month, you've put 40 into it, you're getting 5 grand a month. Your main payback is going to come in that 5 months a year here. Now, when we expand to other locations, that'll change, obviously. But for right here, 5 times 5 is 25 grand. So you're getting close to break even in year one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not too bad. You're looking at year 2 being profitable.
And okay.
And it's a tax write-off.
Oh, okay. So it's a tax write-off for you. And then you're doing the maintenance, you're doing you're doing the captaining of the boat. So it's essentially just a total passive investment.
Yeah, it becomes passive. Really, the only thing that would make it active would be when you get a maintenance bill. For example, we have mobile mechanics that, for a dry operation, we have mobile mechanics that come and check on the boats, do preventative maintenance, do the servicings, things of that sort. So basically what happens is we put them in direct contact with the partner, and they just pay those invoices. And basically that comes out of their side of the expenses, their side of the gross, so to speak. Okay. It's almost like for lack of better terms, like a shared gross. So 38 Boat Valet has its expenses, the partner has their expenses, and we have people in the background that are breaking that down in spreadsheets. And so, you see what those numbers are. And, marketing's the biggest expense. I mean, obviously it's what produces the ROI, but it's the biggest expense of all of it. But it's what produces for the business. So, it's pretty darn cool. And if somebody has a policy with you that they've funded well,
oh yeah,
but they really don't need to get a boat loan, they can go get a loan against that policy.
They operate as their own bank. That's exactly right, folks. That's exactly right. And
go ahead.
If we fast forward, so Eric, fast forward the clock, you bought that first boat. Now 38 Valet you're managing a fleet of how many?
Well, we've actually downsized since we spoke last.
Okay.
We're going to tighten up some things. We had 8 boats where we got rid of some of those. I'm going to be transparent because this is what I do. I don't just go promote and talk about all the positives, because this is going back to business. Mm-hmm. So what we've done is we've found some issues to resolve in the operation. So we started resolving those issues, and that's we reevaluated everything here recently. I'm actually about ready to use my policy I've got with you because some things I've got going on in the background. Like I said, I'm that transparent guy that doesn't hide stuff. Yep. Like I'm not the guy that says, "Oh, this is great, it's wonderful." It's business. You're going to deal with stuff. Oh, there's issues you're going to have. Of course. And some people, I get these people that think everything's just all great. Well, it's not always all great. I still have a business that I'm trying to grow.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, if you're going to be if you're going to be an investor in a business and or an operator in a business, if you're sitting there thinking that it's going to run itself and that you're not going to have costs of, costs of doing business, you're out of your mind, right? I mean, that's just the way that it's going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, see, like this year, what happened, and this is one of the things that we deal with in our area. And this is just part of the boating industry. Is we had weather to deal with, we had maintenance things to deal with boats. We were short more than half the fleet, in the busiest part of the summer, and so we had cancellations to deal with. Well, you still have to pay for that advertising costs.
Yeah.
So what happens is you get this expense, and you have to try to recover. So, like, I'm about to use my policy, and basically I've got, it's not, and I don't want to call it an exit plan. It's more of my backup plan is going into place. Because when winter comes, with the way the economy is changing and all that stuff, you just never know. You're always going to have a business in season, though. That's the thing with the boat rental business. You're always going to have a business in season. It's the off season when you kind of pull back, you put in your mind, like I've put in my mind every year, okay, there might not be any more bookings for the rest of the year. So you got to set money aside to save, which is what I love about the policies. Like I've already started funding it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got another thing I'm doing right now, getting rid of an asset. I'm going to dump some more into it. And I'm probably going to be taking out my first loan on it because that's what it's there for. That's what you have a safety net for. So with that, use it to do what you need to do, make an investment and create some more cash flow off of it. So this isn't just about the boat business. This is about overall well-being. This is about legacy. This is about wealth, creating wealth. I'm not a wealthy guy yet. I'm not there, but I'm going to get there. And this is part of how I'm going to do that. And there's lessons to learn along the way. There's principles to abide by. And that's something that the audience needs to understand. It's not always going to be beautiful, flowery, sunny day. You're going to have your rainy days to deal with.
Yep.
And you better not be just trying to save your cash. You better be putting your cash into something that makes babies. Cash should be making its own kids, right? It should be cash flow.
That's right.
It's got to be cash flow. If you don't have cash flow, cash is not king anymore. It's obvious. Cash is not key anymore.
Your money has to work harder for you. It has to be constantly working for you at all times, right? Even when, to the point that you made before, when seasons are slow, is the money that I've deployed into the assets still actually earning me a rate of return? And that's a big part of what we do with overfunding life insurance policies. That's a big, big piece of that. But also it's about financial positioning. But, Eric,
Yep.
we're up on quarter after the hour here, brother. So we're going to have to continue this at a different point, but real quick.
No problem.
What I did want to just kind of leave the good folks that have spent the time with us this evening, replay weareinfinityx.com, We Are Infinity X YouTube and the app, is you also are expanding outside of the United States. Am I right?
Yes. Hopefully in the next, in the next 12 to 18 months, going to the Bahamas and probably South Florida, Sarasota area in particular.
Yep.
There's a few things we're wanting to do down south, in the islands and so on, and working on it.
I love it. I love it, folks. This is my boy, right? This is This is a business relationship of mine. This is Eric Pearce. The business is 30A Boat Valet, luxury boat valet. And that you can find him at, on Instagram at 30A Boat Valet. You can also find him on Instagram and on Facebook at Eric Pearce. And Eric, I can't thank you enough, brother. Obviously getting to know you and Eva has been a real pleasure. We're up to incredible things. People want to understand more about what you're doing in this, in this space, because it's a space that can provide a horizontal income. It's something that if you're partnered with the right individuals can create massive demand, right? You just go into it with the game plan in mind, understand what the outcomes can look like, right? And map and be prepared to pivot for when, stormy weather comes in, in the top of your season. So Eric, I can't thank you enough for spending some time giving, my audience and the good folks out there education into the world of luxury boat rentals. And pay attention, people. Pay attention to what Eric is doing, because, since I've gotten to know him, it's already started to escalate. So Eric, thanks, brother. It really, really
Absolutely.
Appreciate your time. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you
again.
Thank
you, Dave.
You're very welcome, brother. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you again. Replay, we are infinityx.com. We are InfinityX YouTube. We continue to look to bring value each and every single week, giving a stage and microphone to an entrepreneur that's doing something that you want to pay attention to. Eric, thanks, brother. Appreciate you all.
My pleasure.
All right, my brother. Have a wonderful night, everybody. We'll see you next week on InfinityX.